It's totally fine.
Yeah, no, I'll probably mention that in a bit. But I saw it and I thought, yes, someone gets it. So, and there's some great case studies in there as well. So thank you for that.
So we did a study back in 2015 called Beyond Uber, where we looked at this whole trend and where it was going. And that's when we started developing the talent ecosystem model.
Yeah. Yeah, no, cool. I saw it and thought it was like a light bulb moment. I thought, yes, someone else gets it. It's not just about talent platforms, it's a whole ecosystem model.
Yeah, you can steal it. I don't mind.
Thank you.
Just give us a little credit. That's all.
Absolutely.
Steal with pride.
Yeah, steal with pride. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
I actually did a webinar. I referenced it in a webinar earlier, Jay. Actually,
Okay.
I did a webinar with a platform called Code Control in Germany, talking about the difference between outsourcing and skill sourcing, and use of platforms. And I referenced your wheel, as I called it then, as well. So thank you.
Yeah, we get a lot of case studies around that stuff. Yeah, it's good, but you know, I don't mind people stealing so long as if you build on it, you let us know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's how intellect keeps growing, is if we build on each other's stuff and lend each other a hand.
Yeah, I think as long as you reference the source, right? It's not like you're trying to pretend it's yours. You just say these great guys at the Institute for Corporate Productivity have done this.
I think we probably stole it from somebody else. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Glenn, you must be on holiday because you're not wearing a shirt or tie or a jacket. What's going on over there?
I'm just trying to sort of basically get into the autumn mode of things here, but no, very much on duty, but looking maybe a little bit more relaxed than normal. I had a fantastic meeting today, which was such a throwback meeting. I was meeting with this guy from a financial institution. He had an assistant, and his assistant every morning would print out all his emails and he'd read them in hard copy. It was like being taken back to 1997. I was like, what the heck is going on here? I don't have to share it with this group here because I know, we talk about the future of work and open talent.
Yeah.
This just goes to show that the whole world doesn't think like us, and we're based at a very
so Glenn, of course, Glenn, you know I'm a futurist. So a long time ago, when we were looking at the future of work, they were predicting that we were all going to go paperless.
Right.
Remember? So I did a study with International Paper looking at that whole issue. And what they determined was the use of paper, office paper, was going to go up 5 to 10% a year based on home offices. So I know, like, one of my colleagues prints tons of stuff off in his home. I mean, his home office is just full of crap. But yeah, you know, it's actually, there's always a trend and a counter trend. And so I'm always looking for where the counter trend is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, speaking of trends, let's stick with our normal trend, which is to do our breakout rooms. I am going to let a few latecomers in. That
was awfully done, Brandon. Just want to give you kudos for that one.
Thank you, son. Thank you. All right, here we go. We'll see you all in several minutes. Have a great conversation with whoever you end up with. Okay, this is the time of the show where anybody who's new on the call, or maybe perhaps hasn't been here for a few months, can say hello, introduce yourself. If you're too shy and you'd rather not, feel free to drop it in the chat. We share this on the blog afterwards. So anybody new to the call, want to say hello?
Hey, yeah, Brandon. Hi, this is Jia Sagu. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, so I am new to the call, and I think it's great to connect with all the like-minded people. I have a few platforms, which is one is on a circular economy. Second is obviously on healthcare. And this is the first time I think I collaborated very well with one of the company which can help me in Colombia. So it was a good breakout session.
Are you joining us from Colombia?
No, I'm joining it from Dallas, Texas. This is the place I live. but I was looking for a help in Colombia, and that company is basically a Brazilian company, has an office in Colombia.
Well, welcome. Drop your info in the chat if you'd like. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi, I'm Diana. I'm based out here in Madrid. I think I'm gonna go back to my home country, Colombia, as I have been hearing it's hitting hot there on looking out for talent, right? So currently I'm working in Accenture, and I'm responsible for a freelancer management program. So really interested to know what's trend, how this progresses, what can we do around the freelancer space.
Welcome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm Taryn Dubé, and I've just joined for the first time. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I was invited to the group. A couple people that I know had mentioned that this is one to jump on, and I see a couple familiar faces, which is nice to see. I'm, I guess, a newer founder, and launching a company that helps with contingent workforce supplier management, and specifically long tail spend. So that's what I'm doing. I'll throw my information in the chat.
So Taryn, you're from Calgary?
Calgary, correct, yes.
Yeah, I was hatted in Calgary.
You were which, sorry?
Hatted. So I got
the white hat.
Yeah, I got the white hat.
Oh, hatted.
Yeah.
Hatted.
So you become
white cowboy hat.
Yeah, you
crowned.
An official Calgarian.
I'm still waiting for mine.
That's great. All right, San.
Not new, but did just help launch a new thing. So I thought I'd give it a big quick plug.
Please.
Yeah, we just launched a thing called Neon. You might have seen Tim Brown, chairman of IDEO, writing about it recently. Super exciting. It's a new model of creative leadership. It's right now, I think we're about 110 very senior creative leaders globally that are just essentially breaking the old model, the old agency model. It's a lot of, right now, it's a lot of design, a lot of idea folks, a lot of Sydney folks, a lot of my background, but people who kind of got fed up with the agency structure and felt too constrained. So I'll pop the website in. We'd love the community's feedback as we're learning and kind of experimenting as we go.
Awesome.
Thanks, Son. Anybody else have any announcements about research, webinars, community events in their world they want to share? Feel free to do it now if you'd like. Anybody?
Hey, just
not quite yet. The future of work study is just with the designers. Probably next week it'll be released. So I'll make sure that you get it, Brandon, so you can circulate it to this group.
Great, excellent. Link, you had your hand up for a sec.
just to say hi, first time, Link Markham, formerly led the BP Continue Workforce Program, most recently at Beeline, and working on my next great adventure right now.
We now have a Link with a C and a Link with a K.
Oh, do we? All right.
All right, Tom O'Malley just came in. Let's see, what do I have on my agenda? We have 2 more platforms have gone through the Trusted Talent Partner certification program, Shakers and Expert Powerhouse. We'll be putting information out about that in the on our newsletter here in the next week or so. And we have a couple great podcasts in the queue. One with the Indie List co-founder Una Herlihy, who's graciously here today, and Mari from Uncompany. So be on the lookout for those when they come out. And
Brandon, can
yes.
I just congratulate you on the pronunciation of my surname? I'm so impressed.
I practiced.
Oh, you're wonderful. I really appreciate
it. The Guinness is on you when I visit.
For sure.
All right,
it might be just
Barry.
worth explaining. Well, in fact, yeah, let me take the mic and just say, in case there are people who don't know what the Trusted Talent Partner Program is, because there are so many hundreds of platforms out there. I think we have 650 in our directory. And when we work with enterprises and they want to know which platforms to work with for what, can be very confusing for them. So one of the things we're trying to do as Open Assembly is to ensure that the best platforms get recognized and recommended. And so we set up the Trusted Talent Partner Program to almost as a sort of quality assurance, if you like, a sort of an accreditation. So platforms is free to submit your entry. You have to reach out to 10 of your customers and get feedback across 13 different dimensions. And if your customers like you and trust you, then you pass and you get this effectively a badge, a kite mark, as we'd say in the UK, that you're a talent platform worthy of the of enterprise interest and adoption. So if you're a platform and you're interested, then please get in touch.
Barry, how can I get to my corporate members the information on this?
Right here.
Brandon.
Okay, Brandon, let's talk, okay? Because I think there's a need out there within my partners to know which ones are. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, let me pass the mic over to Jay. So I'm super excited that Jay is with us today. Jay's a futurist, but he's also one of the founding members of the Institute for Corporate Productivity, I4CP. And as I was saying at the beginning of this call, I came across what I refer to as his wheel, or the wheel, and it's not called the wheel. I think it's called the Talent Ecosystem Integration Model, and we might see it in a second. But I stole it with pride and referenced I4CP many years ago when I was giving a presentation, because it struck me that it was an organization that really got the fact that there's so many flexible ways of accessing global talent, and those organizations that do access it are more successful than those that don't. So there it is. There's the wheel. So thank you very much, Jay. And I'm also excited because for a long time on these calls and elsewhere, we've been talking about the importance of skills over roles and jobs. You know, a role and a job is sort of fixed and analog, if you like, and thinking about people's skill sets and tasks and breaking that down is really much more digital and enables a global model. And so we've been thinking about that a lot, and that's really going to be one of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. So Jay, thank you very much for joining us. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. Take it away.
No, good. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Brendan. I appreciate being on. I've been fascinating with this group. John Healy is the one who got me interested in this group. I originally knew John when he was at Kelly Services and was doing the future of work there. And he introduced me to this group, and I've had John speak at some of my meetings in the past. So I'm fascinated by this group. I was looking forward to the October conference, damn it, to finally get and see everybody in person. But I'm going to be talking about changing a manager's mindset from scarcity of talent to sources of skills. And as Barry said, this is something that we have seen for a long time as being futurist and looking into the future, that the future is not going to be jobs. You know, look at John Boudreau's book on work without jobs and how he describes how to deconstruct work into various skills. And I've got a number of examples of companies that I can share with you that have done this successfully. So it's something that's taking off out there in the ecosystem. I know a lot of our members that are part of our organization are doing it or are attempting to do it. And I'll give you a couple of examples. All of these things on the talent ecosystem model, we have case studies for. There's none listed here for robotics and AI because we just did a big study on generative AI in HR, and especially all of AI in HR. And we have a number of use cases that I'll end up putting some logo in there eventually. But you can see we've looked at a lot of this ecosystem to see where the skills are going to come from in the future. I'm going to talk a little bit about, if I can get this thing to move. There we go. I'll talk a little bit about us first, because you probably don't know who we are. Our mission is to discover and advance the next practices in human capital, to see what's around the bend, to see what's around the corner. Yes, we look at best practices too, but we're primarily a research organization that really does rigorous research and looks at where are those next practices coming from. And we have a very definite, rigorous way we look for next practices. So all of our studies have a multivariate dependent variable, what we call market performance. And it's revenue growth, market share, profitability, and customer satisfaction. We probably do more studies in the human capital space than anybody in the world. That's what my partner, who's the co-founder and the CEO, says all the time. So I'm going to repeat it. And this is a dependent variable we build in all of our studies. We build lots of different dependent variables, but this is one that's in every study. It's consistent. So we want to know what the companies in the top quartile of all four of those things are versus the bottom quartile. So we call high market performing companies versus low market performing companies. And we can get some good deviation there. But beyond that, because high market performing companies usually might have a little bit more revenue to throw at issues than low market performing companies. So we look at, is there a correlation of market performance? So we look at which ones have the highest correlation to market performance. Then we'll do an R-squared analysis to see what percent of the variance in market performance does this variable contribute. I know that's a little geeky, but what we try to do is companies that are high market performing companies that have a high correlation to market performance, but not a lot of companies are doing it yet. We sort of flagged that right away in our research as maybe this is something we should look at. And we'll do interviews with the company. So we do a lot of qualitative and quantitative research. And this is not meant to be a sales pitch, but I'll be talking about high performing in our data as we go through this. And so there'll be a question at the end, which is a test. Do you have to know this market performance criteria? I'm only kidding. I'm a professor, but I'm not going to put you through that. Okay, that's who we are. We're a member-driven research organization. We don't have vendors, we don't have consultants, but all of our members are some of the biggest companies in the world, and they have access to our research. We do advisory work, but we don't do traditional consulting work. So, the talent imperative, we did a big study with Fortune magazine, and we call it the talent imperative. And what it showed right off the bat, what jumped out at us was skill shortages pose the greatest potential for disruption in businesses. And 71% of respondents from large organizations, that's 1,000 or more employees, ranked it above other factors such as inflation, supply chain, interruptions, geopolitical instability. All those things were lower than having the right skills at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And companies are worried about it. In fact, in World Economic Forum, this came out in 2020, so it's a little old now, but it's still up to date. 50% of employees will need to be reskilled in the next 5 years. But our study shows only about 12% perceive their reskilling or upskilling efforts as effective. So right away, there's a problem. We see that with technology, and especially with this generative AI kick that everybody's on, technology is a big thing in the human capital space. But most people aren't really addressing it. Most companies aren't addressing it yet. 70% believe their workforce does not currently have the skills necessary to advance their strategy over the next 1 to 3 years. That's 70%. That's 7 out of 10 companies believe their workforce does not currently have the skills. So in the future, just ahead, overall, few believe their organizations are ready for the future. They just don't have a clue. By the way, as a futurist, I've been doing this for 40 years. And looking at scenarios and looking at the future, this is probably the worst period I've been through to try to think about the future. There is just so much current day-to-day uncertainty that it's hard to really project out in the future of where things are going to be. There's just a lot happening out there. So this is Diane Gerson. By the way, Diane Gerson is going to be speaking at our conference. We have a conference every year in March. It's about 500 senior executives that come to our conference. Diane says we need real-time sense and replace capabilities for skills. As our business move to agile models and adopt new technology, in this environment, strategic workforce planning is relegated to the trash bin, and I will say, of history. I did my PhD thesis on strategic workforce planning. So Diane says we have to move to a different model. And I call this model, and I agree with her, and traditional strategic workforce planning has not worked going into the future. I call it talent risk analysis. And what I tell companies is you have to look at where your risks are in your talent supply chain. Where are your talent risks are? And you got to have a way to look at that. I'm not going to get into how you do that, but this talent risk analysis is an important concept, both to look internally and externally. Where are our risks? So if you're going to look for your skills, do you have them internally? Where do you have them externally? You know, it's phenomenal. One of the members that are part of this group talked about giving advice to companies as they outsource. I'm just it's flabbergasting to me that so many companies outsource, or they look for talent in the gig environment, etc. But they don't have a clue of what they're currently spending and what they currently have, etc. But they're looking externally, and I ask them, how are you going to know you're successful? Because you don't even know what you've got, never mind what to compare it to. So it's just a remarkable thing how sometimes companies are further behind than you think where their thinking is. So organizations, skills of their current employees, 53% say they have insufficient data about current skills and capabilities. Excuse me, 27% said that LinkedIn knows more about their workforce than an organization does. I'd laugh at that. This is a confidential survey, but I didn't believe that 27% would actually say that. Then no organization is strong in identifying skills they would need in the future. In fact, 47% lack clarity about skills that will be most important going forward. 16% said they're effective at identifying. Excuse me. You know, 16% said only 16% said they're effective. So creating a skill database. One of the things we've seen with some of our members is that they're going back old school. Instead of competencies, capabilities, they're going back to what they call KSAs, skills, knowledges, and abilities, and really breaking things down to skills. Now, sometimes it's not the whole organization. Like Johnson & Johnson started with their technology group. That was their critical role. One of Providence Health started with their nurses, their RNs, and broke down their work to the skills that they're doing, and then reassigned going forward. So it's different in every company. Some, like some of the case studies I'm going to show you, have done the whole company. But sometimes that's not realistic for everybody. So a lot of companies will start with their critical roles. And this is Monica from Microsoft. And the goal should be discoverability. And she says discoverability for us entails removing the barriers to discover. In other words, to discover the skills that they have in the work, and to be discovered. How can I be discovered inside of a company? And to deliver on our biggest bets, it will be critical for us to easily discover and to tap into information about talent we already have. What I always tell companies is, how can you go out and find skills when you don't know what you already have? So you've got to have a clear understanding of what you have before you go out and spend money on an external environment. So this is what companies are trying to do, so they can do better purchasing when they do go externally. So creating jobs, roles, and capabilities, competencies, and skills. So there's a difference, okay? There's jobs, and then there's roles. So you have senior project leader, maybe a job. A role could be project lead. Then you have capabilities and competencies, which is a project manager. Then you break it down into skills, meeting facilitation, risk management, task tracking, etc. So you have to have a way to deconstruct work, deconstruct the jobs. John Boudreau's book is excellent on deconstruction, and I'm sure you have your sources too. But you have to have a way to deconstruct work, and you have to start with something. You may be a critical job or a critical role that you want to look at, like Johnson & Johnson did IT. Some other ones are different. You have different critical roles, but you have to start somewhere and start breaking it down. A lot of them have started, because there's good technology platforms that I'm going to show you in a minute that allow this to be easier done. Why I like this is this. If I have a project and I'm looking for a skill within the company, I want to be able to go quickly and to where that skill is. Some people, as they fill out their skill database as they're going forward, don't really realize they have a certain skill. What the AI technology allows you to do is it says that usually when a person like Barry has this, and this skill, they also have this skill. So Barry puts out his profile and he puts down the first three. AI will pick up on, you should know the fourth, Barry. And if you don't, here's an opportunity for you to increase your skill level in that area. So it automatically tags Barry as somebody who is eligible for some upskilling or reskilling, or maybe he has a skill, but he doesn't even know it. So it's looking at deconstructing the work. How to build a skill database for success? There's a number of things. You got to identify who your stakeholders are first. That's why some companies start with their critical roles rather than the whole company. You identify the scope of the data that you're going to need for your skill database. Identify the technology. 3, how will you house the skills and integrate it? Identify success criteria. What will this look like if it's successful? Codify the process, gathering, verifying, and maintaining a skill database. Having a process for doing that. Identifying mindset and culture changes needs, and codify a process to identify future needs. You also, in step 5, where you're codifying the process of gathering, verifying, maintaining, you have to have a way to sunset skills too. The common theme is an engineer's knowledge that he learns as a freshman is obsolete by the time they're a senior. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just a myth out there. But everybody's skills, if you don't use them, have a half-life. So you have to have a way to also do that too, to verify the skills are still current. There's some, things that you would benefit from. Learning in careers is one of the big things. There's a lot of benefits to having a skill database, but learning in careers is probably one of the biggest. So I'm going to talk about talent mobility in a minute, because talent mobility has always been one of the best ways to really increase the skills and upskill and reskill. So but usually companies don't do this very well. That's why internal talent marketplace is a good platform to help people start getting that talent mobility, career pathing, L&D prioritization, supporting a learning culture, employee branding. The nice thing about a skill database is everybody out there, especially young people, I'm a little older, they have a personal brand. They do it on Facebook or whatever platform, the TikTok or whatever. They have a brand. They personalize themselves. You can now do this inside of a company. I can have a personal brand inside the company, and I can build it and maintain it and keep it going. So it's almost like an internal Facebook page. Also, talent intelligence, improve automation, leveraging hidden talent. Remember I said the adjacent skills. Increase business agility, and that's what both Microsoft and IBM were talking about with this more agile kind of workforce. It allows you to be more agile. The old thing of competencies and capabilities didn't give you enough information to really be agile. And what this skill database allows you to move fast. One of the things I'm seeing in some companies, and I can't really name the company I'm talking about, so I'm sorry, but they have an internal skill database, and there's 2 that's coming to mind, very big companies that also have an external skills database. So why I asked about your trusted talent platforms, some companies have gone through the process of developing that to themselves. One company calls it their mall, where you can actually go, it's like visiting a mall, where you can go through their verified external platforms and internal platforms and see it at a glance. The technology allows you to do this, so you become much more agile. And that's what Barry I was talking about, is a lot of companies, they put a lot of time and effort, as you have.
Yeah.
They could use an easier way to do it.
Yeah.
So it gives you competitive intel, strategic and workforce planning also. There's a couple quotes here from a couple companies. One's AT&T, one's Veritech. I'm going to show you a case study from Kimberly Rose on Veritech in a minute, because they've had some phenomenally good results from their internal talent marketplace and skill database. So internal talent marketplace, what is that all about? We know about the external talent marketplace. This organization is very much involved in that, and they've been throughout the years. And I've been impressed with what's going. I tried to get John Windsor to be on our conference in March, but our agenda is all full up because I want him to speak to our members about what you're doing at Open Assembly. So hopefully we can get John to next year. We got to get earlier. So internal talent, once you have a skill database, now you're ready for an internal talent marketplace. If you don't know where your talent is, where your skill is, you cannot have talent mobility as cleanly as you can with an internal talent marketplace. One thing an internal talent marketplace platforms allows companies to do is to override talent hoarding, because many managers don't want to let their people go to get these assignments, to get these projects, but it's because they're too valuable to them. For example, if Barry was my best employee in my team, in fact, my budget, my P&L, Barry gets about $2 million into my P&L, and that's right to my bottom line. That's right to my bonus. Now HR has come to me and said, hey, Barry's your high performer. I think we should give him some development experiences. What do you think my reaction is going to be when this person adds to my bonus every year? I'm going to say no. Intellectually, I know it's the right thing to do, but financially, I don't want to do it. So this internal talent marketplace jumps over that. So it allows people to have the freedom to be chosen, to be discovered, and for you to discover. So this is Unilever has always had a good internal talent marketplace. And so he says we need new ways of working, which are much more agile and flexible organization, brings people together in different ways to make sure that knowledge and experience is much more fluid, not only from me to me too. So a learning culture is what it's all about. And we could go into a lot about what a learning culture is all about. We wrote a best-selling book called The Culture Renovation, which is in its 5th printing right now. But culture is a huge thing. So in organizations, and accessible from the moment you are ready and when you need it. So the right skills at the right time at the right place don't take planning. It's instantaneous. So when we did our study on the talent ecosystem model, this is one of the latest studies we did. This internal talent marketplace cannot come soon enough to most employees. They see this as the greatest opportunity over the next 1 to 3 years for organizations to really build the kind of flexibility and agility they need in their workforce. So those organizations workforce currently has the skills necessarily to advance. So this is organizations from our study. Remember before, most organizations said about 70% said they did not think they had the skills necessary to advance their strategy over the next 1 to 3 years. This is that small percentage, 30 or so percent, that said they currently has the skills necessary. So what we found is they're 17.5 times more likely to currently have an internal talent marketplace than those who had done. So remember, there was 71% who said they don't have the skills. They might not have the skills to advance their strategy. These companies are 30% who said they do. So they have 17.5 times more likely to have an internal talent marketplace. But still, only 19% of organizations currently leverage the internal talent marketplace to access the needs and skills and capabilities. Huge advantage, huge opportunity for companies to really look at what do we have now before I go externally and hire one of the talent people that are on this call. Shouldn't I know what I have currently before I go externally? How much am I paying for skills internally before I pay for an external talent to come in. And if I can't move this person to fit the project that I need, why not? What's holding us back? So this internal skills database really helps you develop this internal talent marketplace. So what is an internal gig? In the internal mobility context, as opposed to a gig economy jobs, like Uber, et cetera, organizations should clearly define what is meant by a gig so that both employees and managers have a consistent understanding. And I would go beyond to define what an internal gig job is, but also what external gig people would look like. And what is our policy around that? Too many managers hire external gig workers without ever going through HR. They go right to procurement because they make up their own definitions of what they need and they go quickly through procurement. Using examples to define what gig work means in an organization can also demonstrate a range of possibilities. One gig might be 100% of someone's time, but last only 1 week. Well, another might require 20% of someone's time, but only last 6 months. So you got to define the range of possibilities. Most organizations want internal gigs to be strategic, involved in important work, or providing strong development opportunities, as opposed to using gigs to accomplish simple tasks that an intern can do. This is both for internal and external. You should have this governance around how managers go about, so you have a consistent policy around that, like developing this mall or whatever it is. So you need to have some ground rules. High-performing organizations also are 75 times more likely than low-performing organizations to have support use of their internal talent marketplace by reconfiguring pay systems to incent and reward employees for project success. So this internal gig market is all about working on projects. Where talent mobility used to fall down is Barry would move and I would lose Barry. He would go to another part of the company to get this development experience. What the internal gig market says is I won't have to lose Barry. He'll only work on this job for this project for 6 months or 1 week or whatever. And he'll get lots of different experiences that he can bring back to help me. So it's a way to reward and incent employees to do this. Now there's controversy around this, but we see 30% are more likely, high performers are more likely to do this. So case examples. This is a quick one. I mean, I can send you the case if you want. This is Vertex, and this is their portals, and they have user-friendly portals. One is the Career Hub, and you can explore the Career Hub, My Life at Vertex. So they're very much into the experience do you have and the well-being of employees. They have My To-Dos, but they have a whole Career Hub where you're looking to build your own profile, have your own brand, and actually go out there and market yourself. This is their Career Hub is run by ServiceNow, and you can see they have assess your competencies. There's ways to assess your competencies. By the way, there's nothing new with this virtual kind of system. Deloitte had one years ago. They call it virtual coaching. But assess your competencies, build your career path, identify opportunities to grow your career, and assess development resources, access development resources. So it's a whole platform. We can go in there and really start looking how to build your own path and create your own brand and build your own path. There's some other case studies we've done. Pitney Bowes, Disney, FedEx, Unilever. Providence Health is a great one because they use John Boudreau to deconstruct and to reconstruct work. And I think this is a good example. I'll give you a good example of what Providence Health did. During COVID, of course, hospitals were just overwhelmed. And so they had to find a way to really free up, or if they didn't hire more nurses, they had to free up nurses somehow. So what they did is they deconstructed an RN's job. and looked at the various tasks they did and the skills they need for the various tasks. What they found that the RNs were taking blood pressure, taking temperatures, and preparing people for coming into the hospital. Why would that high-priced talent like that just do blood pressure and temperature taking? Why couldn't the receptionist at the front desk do the same thing? So what they did is they took those kind of jobs away from the RN, upskilled the front desk employees so they could do the basic stuff that they needed to prep for coming into the hospital. It was a tremendous success. They've been gone on to other parts of the organization. But John and I forget the CHRO's name, they talk a lot about it when they do speeches together. So Tiffany was another one. I think Unileader is a great study. Some of our research that we've done, you can see there's a good book by Edie Goldberg, who's a good friend of mine, called The Inside Gig. Help them grow and watch them. Up is not the only way. Rethinking Career Mobility. And there's another good book that's out there. You can see some of our research on the side. There's a lot of different ways we've looked at this particular issue. But if you don't get culture right, nothing else matters. I gotta say, we've been doing tons of research on culture. And one of the biggest problems is they have a culture that does not measure and reward this particular activity. It's a lot of work. You've got to have a lot of backing. You've got to have a lot of resources. The platforms are not cheap. But so culture is what really matters. So I wanted to give enough time. I condensed a lot of research into a short period of time. There's a lot I left out. I'd be glad to ask questions if you have them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. That was fascinating. I mean, I'll kick us off with a quick question. So I totally agree with it, the whole looking internally first to understand, what you've got, and organizations don't seem to do that. Certainly when we help them look at talent marketplaces, most of them don't have an internal talent marketplace. And I've been, despite the success of companies like Gloat and Hitch and others, I've been sort of surprised that internal talent marketplaces haven't become more commonplace more quickly. Yeah. And so despite large organizations, sounds like a lot of them have them, don't see every organization, but it seems like it's been quite slow. Is that your experience?
It is. I'm not sure that I don't want to disparage HR professionals. I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say things. Sometimes they're a little overwhelmed with putting out fires to think strategically about something that could help them in the long term and maybe not have so many fires today. They're understaffed, they're under budgeted, and they're just putting out a lot of fires every day. So this is a big task that requires budget and resources that they should do, prepare them for the future, but a lot of them are hesitant to do, or they'll just do it in parts of the company.
Yeah.
Or in like a critical role.
Yeah.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. They're so incredibly busy, and it's a big job, and so they sort of start it in certain areas. I've always had this sort of vision for, and I think I got it from the World Economic Forum somewhere, but being able to measure the TCW, your total cost of work, across internal and all external sources, from staffing agencies to consultancies to outsourcers to talent marketplaces, so that you can then measure your return on work. You're making a significant investment in human capital. How much does it deliver? If you could measure that for an organization, that would be awesome.
So there's ways to measure it. I mean, back in the 70s, we did something called human resource accounting, which looked at the ROI and the value of human capital and how it increased based on experience, knowledge, and time in the organization. So you can actually put a number on it. If I hire Barry and he leaves within the first year, how much money did I just lose?
Yeah.
If he stays for 5 years, how much is he worth to the company now? So you can actually put a worth on human capital.
Yeah.
There's also other ways to do it. It's just unbelievably complicated to do it.
Yeah.
Now, some of the government agencies in Europe and United States are looking for ways now to have companies start reporting out on some of their data around the workforce and how valuable it is. Investors want it badly because they have information around everything else that a company does, except for the one thing that gives it a competitive advantage. That is their workforce.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have enough data on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
Don, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Jay. That was brilliant. And just to build on Barry's question, actually, I feel like I want to get your perspective. I feel like so much of the inertia, so much of the resistance to change within the industry, certainly, my industry, is based on the notion of a business model that measures hours, essentially, that measures human talent in terms of hours. You mentioned earlier about the example of someone not wanting to give away a Barry because Barry's hours are worth so much money, etc. When I think of your breakdown from job to skill, like skill doesn't take hours, right? Skill can take a minute, or it could take an hour, depending on how skillful you are. Wondering if you've seen any evolution in business models, if any of your members have tried out different business models, whether they're hiring out their talent or whether it's just internally the way they structure their P&Ls. Have you seen any innovation going on that moves us away from measuring human talent just in terms of time?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some places that are trying to be innovative. The 110 Coalition is one of them, and the 110 Coalition looks at skills you have rather than degrees. And so it is actually coming down to what is your skills? And I don't care if you have a degree or not. If you have the skills to fit what I need, that's all I want. One of the reasons why companies love the external gig market is that a lot of times change internally happens when you bring in external people, because they bring in that insight from the outside where you're not in this bubble anymore. You got new knowledge coming in that actually creates an effort for change inside of an organization. So one of the benefits that is, it's easy to put a cost on everything, but the benefit side is harder to quantify sometimes. And we know that a lot of times people hire external people for the sole purpose of shaking things up, whether it be a project, whether it be a group, whether it be a division, or whatever it is, because you bring in that outside perspective that is so valuable to a lot of companies. The problem I have with that, though, is they don't even know what they have internally. They don't even listen internally. They don't know what skills they have. So they don't know what they're missing. That drives me crazy too. Thank you. David, you have your hand up.
Yes. Hey, Jay, I appreciate your presentation. I'm a coach, and as you were presenting the skills that would be in demand over the next 10 or I forgot the time period, I couldn't help but thinking, and this is partly through my coaching, the uncertainty around how many of those skills are actually going to be provided by some artificial intelligence application. So it feels like a moving target.
Oh, yeah. That's what I told in the beginning, is that being a futurist, this is the worst time I've ever had in my life, because there's just so much uncertainty out there. Who would have predicted that generative AI would have this much impact this year? Now, everybody wants me to, we just finished a big project on generative AI and HR. We're presenting this everywhere because it's just so new. Who would have predicted that that would have come up and that we would need skills around that, and prompting skills, engineering prompting? I mean, it's just, same with that list that I put out there. How many will be there, or how many will be reinvented to be something different based on the new technology or whatever's coming out there within 5 years, within 3 years? It's that's where all the hesitancy is. I know one of our members, I can't mention their names, but they're already preparing people for non-existent jobs in the future. it's remarkable what they're doing internally to help them prepare for a future they can't predict. It's great. It's great observation, David. As a coach, it must be hard to deal with your clients with all this uncertainty as they're going forward.
Yeah, simply saying life is full of changes. You just need to be resilient and adapt.
That's not going to, yeah.
That doesn't pay the bills.
You got to have something more than that. And
Thank you.
I love the way our company is so agile. We're a small company, of course, but it's just we have a tremendously good culture, and it pays off. We're small. Terry, did you have your hand up? No? Yes.
So just, I guess, a softball question, since we only have a couple of minutes left. Surely you're aware of the company Gloat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'll make it as a half step harder. Given that what you do is you look into the future, do you think a company like Gloat is even a little bit too early?
Well, they're the most popular platform in this space right now. Hitch is another one that's very popular. They're the biggest one. They may be too early. It could be. I'm a futurist, so I'm used to being too early on a lot of things. But they're good and they're improving. Now, if they get too big and too arrogant, we'll see. But they may be a little bit too early.
Thanks.
It's a good. I have no stock in that company, but I most of a lot of our members use it.
Thank you.
Mark, you want to throw down?
Yeah, just somewhat similar to that, and Carrie's question on Gloat, and there's the other ones that are out there in the Fuel 50s and so forth. And my question is more related to technology stack, and if you see a number of the companies for technology companies, the Workday and SuccessFactors kind of trying to build upon that or repurposing their existing technology to account or address some of those internal marketplace needs.
Yeah, already you see Workday coming out with their platform, and they've got an add-on for building a skill database and internal talent marketplace. I know the people at Workday; they're good people. There's been pros and cons that I've heard from people who have tried to use their platform for this kind of thing. So we'll see. That's why Veritech went to ServiceNow and built their own AI product on top of ServiceNow. But I mean, you got to go out there and really see what's going to fit you. It's a lot of money to invest too. Yeah, the other companies are. I don't know what SuccessFactors are doing, but I know Workday is.
Yeah, and that's why I think if you already have one of those large technology investments, are you more likely to go to them than go to a Gloat Fuel 50 for additional investment?
Yeah, you're probably absolutely right. I mean, making the additional investment has been a mistake that company has made in the past. So why don't we stick with what we have and see if we can bolt on their new product?
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Fortunately, I don't have to make those kinds of decisions. We are doing a lot of we do a lot of stuff on HR technology platforms, and we've got a few studies coming out on that in the near future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thanks, Bob, who just told us Hitch has been acquired by and fully integrated into ServiceNow. I'd missed that somehow, but thank you.
Yeah,
so
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Jay, awesome job. Thank you so much. That was really fascinating, really useful. Really
Thank you for the questions. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Jay.
What have we got in 2 weeks, Brandon?
So in a couple of weeks, we have Atan Bernstein. He's the co-founder of Velocity Career Labs and the head of ecosystem at Velocity Network Foundation. He's driving the adoption of Velocity's mission to reinvent how career records are shared across a global market. Yeah. So it should be a really good one. More info coming on that soon. And this will be available for sharing on our blog here in the next 24 hours. You all get an email about that as well.
Awesome. Thank you,
everyone. Jay.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.